But beyond that, for what we know has to change in our country next year and beyond. And so I'm really glad to be here. Anna Tillman's with me. Anna's our campaign manager year-round. So if there's anything you want to pass along to us, or any way that you think you could be of help, please let us know, because we're gearing up, just like lots of people are, for a banner year in 2018. Now, I think my job here today is not to have a town meeting, so I won't do it. But I do want to just highlight, just in case anybody needs reminding, I just want to highlight 4 battles. That's the way to describe it, I think. 4 battles that are underway right now, as we speak, and are going to be playing out in the coming days and weeks, which show us just how high the stakes are. Because it doesn't get any more basic than people's health care. And the Republicans have, from day one, partly because they wanted to oppose everything President Obama put forward, but also because they were just in an oppositional mode in terms of any kind of constructive program that we could come up with, even if we borrowed ideas from their own past proposals. Right? That didn't make any difference. It was going to be Soviet-style health care. I mean, you heard the ridiculous charges that were made as we were struggling, have been struggling, to devise a system that gets Americans covered so they can protect themselves and their families. They don't get ruled out of insurance coverage because they were sick in the past, and so on. How long have we been fighting this battle, and how long have the Republicans been beating their chests about it without a single constructive word or thought or alternative proposal? So now their bluff's been called. Their bluff's been called, and they have nothing to offer except just this empty promise, we're going to keep a promise. And by the way, it's going to mean 22 million people lose their health care coverage in this country. And if that happens, that's just too bad, because we're going to keep this misbegotten promise. And this proposal of this week, I think we're going to keep it. I think we're going to fend it off. Thank goodness for a few conscientious Republicans who make that possible. But this one is the worst one yet. This isn't just about repealing the Affordable Care Act. This is about rolling back basic Medicaid protections that we've counted on for years. So, health care, just about as basic as it gets. We've had town meetings over and over, all over this district. I've never had as many town meetings, and I must say I've never enjoyed town meetings quite as much as I have these, because often they can be pretty rough. But these town meetings have been uplifting, and there's been a groundswell of support for preserving and protecting people's health care and so many other good things. But this has been the dominant theme, no question. This is what people have been coming out to testify about, often in very moving ways. Number 2, protecting the air we breathe and the water we drink. That's another pretty basic thing. We talk about climate change, and of course, we're profoundly threatened. 100 years from now, when people look back and ask what were they thinking, I believe that will be the issue that is the most historically significant, maybe, of anything we're dealing with, what's happening to our planet. But that breaks down into decisions we're making every day, a lot of them in the U.S. Congress right now, about some things that affect us in more ways than one here in North Carolina. You know, we know we're the center of this country's environmental research. We have the world-class EPA and NIH labs out in the park. We also know that for us, this isn't just a question of environmental research and sound science. It's a question of our economy, our jobs, and the kinds of things that have made this a world-class region. So I offered on the House floor last week an amendment. It was not accepted, but it was an amendment to restore the basic investment we're making in environmental research, which is an issue of international significance, but it's also an issue I happen to know a good bit about because of the district I represent. And name a country in the world that thinks Donald Trump did the right thing in pulling us out of the Paris Accords. I mean, that is a defiant gesture to his political base, I suppose, but it's a gesture that has huge, huge consequences for the future generations that we're supposed to be protecting, but also for our present-day international relationships. Third issue is one I'm going to hear an earful about, and I should, where I'm going next. And one reason I'm speaking a little early is that I'm heading down to La Fiesta del Pueblo, the annual celebration of our Latino community. And the ugliness, the nastiness, the outright bigotry that characterized the Trump campaign on this issue of immigration, on this issue of what America is, and who we stand for, and who we're open to. This has now carried over into the Trump administration in a major way, the most egregious aspect of which is the Dreamers. These young people brought here by their parents who have known no other country and who have made such enormous strides in school, in military service, in every other way. Donald Trump wanting to take advantage of the fact that they came forward, and participated in this Dreamers program. Take advantage of that fact to identify them now for deportation. It is unconscionable. It's something that that's an 80% issue for many American people because it's sheer decency. And so, yes, we in the Democratic Party are committed to comprehensive immigration reform, and we'll keep fighting for that, to do fairness, to do justice across all the aspects of this issue. But here again, the most immediate task is to protect these Dreamers. And I tell you, we're going to do that. If there's anything else we're going to do in this congressional session as Democrats, we're going to protect those Dreamers. And I'm going to carry that message today. And then finally, don't let your eyes glaze over. But finally, the issue is the budget, and you shouldn't let your eyes glaze over because the budget, of course, involves everything we do, everything we care about, everything we invest in, and we're fighting a Trump budget that is worse than the Tea Party, and the Republicans are making a big thing of how much better they made it. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. They're funding, in these bills they're passing now through the House, they're funding our domestic investments. And by the way, that means housing, that means health care, that means education, that means infrastructure, that means medical research. They're funding these things. I think the great country has to invest in funding of it. Sequestration minus $5 billion, which is absolutely a starvation budget and then some. So, guess what? Even Donald Trump made a deal with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. I have no idea where that came from or where it's going. But I'll tell you one thing. Because of that and the fact that the debt ceiling is tied into this, we have a fighting chance of getting a decent budget passed for next year. And by decent, I mean nothing to write home about, nothing great like we'd do if we were really in charge. But what I have in mind is getting off of that sequestration level of funding, getting basically a continuation budget for these investments that we know are so important. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. This is something I work on quite directly, and I promise you that we are going to push as hard as we know how. I wish we could have already done it, The end of the year's coming, end of the fiscal year's coming this month. In a rational system, we would have figured this out months ago. We knew what was coming. But of course, it doesn't quite work that way. Got to have a few near-death experiences before you do the right thing. So I expect we'll have that, and then hopefully work out a bipartisan approach to the budget, which will avoid the worst aspects of Trumpism as far as defunding basic commitments this country has made.